This episode of EDUKWEST is sponsored by Acceptly. Want to get into the college of your dreams? Check out acceptly.com. Acceptly takes the guesswork out of the application process by guiding you step by step through it. You will know exactly what step to take when and receive the resources you need at each step. Get extra guidance from professional college counselors. And best of all, it's entirely free. So go and check out Acceptly today at acceptly.com and follow them on Twitter at Acceptly. Please thank Acceptly on Twitter for their support of EDUKWEST. Hi everyone, I'm Kirsten Winkler. This is EDUKWEST, and together, as every week, we're on the search for better education. Our holiday episode with a very special company, and I'm happy that Jeremy Johnson, the CMO and one of the co-founders of Tutor, had the time to sort of jump in and do this interview just before the holidays, and so happy to have you on EDUKWEST, Jeremy.
Well, Kirsten, I'm happy to be here. Thank you very much for having me, and happy holidays to you and to all your viewers.
In just like 2 days. I still have to go until Friday evening, but that's okay.
Understood. Same here. Same here.
I read about you in preparation for our talk that you are a tech entrepreneur but also have a background in education, although I didn't get any details, but educate us a little bit about this. Where does this interest, at least for education, come from?
Yeah, of course. I had a little bit of an odd educational upbringing myself. So when I was very young, like really elementary school and middle school, I attended a public school in Trenton, New Jersey. Trenton is an incredible city, but also, like many other Rust Belt cities in the United States, has really struggled over the past 50 to 60 years. And there's been a huge flight of people, especially educated people, out of the city. And so the public school systems are pretty poor. It's the third worst performing public school system in New Jersey and the 25th worst in the country. So you end up with a fairly challenged environment, as I'm sure you can imagine. And I was fairly active in school, and I played a lot of sports. And people who, I really developed strong friendships. But my parents, roughly around middle school, in 7th grade, started to become concerned about what I was learning and the quality of the education overall. And so I ended up transferring to a small private school in Princeton, New Jersey, which was the polar opposite. Thanks to my parents, understanding enough to apply for financial aid, it was possible. And I ended up seeing two very different types of educational experience as I was growing up. One in which there was very little support for students, and especially very little support throughout the college guidance process and selection. And on the other hand, in high school, I had the good fortune of seeing the exact opposite, incredible support for students. And I got to see, through my friends and peers who I still knew from the first half of my educational life, I got to see both sides of it at the same time. And what I realized is that there were a lot of students who were incredibly smart and competent, but who didn't understand that they could go to a great school. They didn't understand that there were really good colleges out there that would have loved to have them apply and who would have given them great financial aid. They assumed the sticker price was the actual price, and that just wouldn't have been true for them. And so I started my first company because I was trying to find a way to increase the flow of information to those students who don't have great guidance counselors. And so it was a social network around the college admissions process designed to really help high school students understand their options and for college admissions officers to allow them to connect more directly with those students. So it was never, we won a handful of business plan competitions when I was a student at Princeton University, and raised funding contingent on me taking time off to help build it at that point. We got it up and running, but it was never huge. We were never more than 12 people and 100,000 students and 100 colleges using it. But it was acquired in 2008 by Zinch, which obviously got to be far larger. I worked with Zinch for a year after that acquisition, and then at that point we basically started Tutor. And so my professional experience has almost entirely been in education, and it was all born of that original experience of wanting to find a way to democratize that information and allow people who didn't have the good fortune of very dedicated guidance professionals to allow them to more easily access that information.
And with Tutor, we clearly stay in sort of the same sector or field you have already known and made contact, I suppose, and got familiar with over the years. So sort of, I guess it is just a logic consequence that you decided with Tutor to be in higher education as well, although I imagine, generally speaking, from the technology, the tools, and we will talk about this in just a moment, what Tutor actually does, but there is the general option to also go in K-12 or other public education, or even you could think of charter schools, so many different options. Why higher education?
So Tutor was really born of a question, a question asked by John Katzman in early 2008. Is what if online higher education were actually great? Mm-hmm. What if you could create a really compelling experience that was as good as a classroom experience? Mm-hmm. What would that look like, and how would you do it? And from that, John, myself, and a couple other people started talking about what it would need to look like. John brought our founding team together. He's a storied entrepreneur in the education space. He founded the Princeton Review.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
That's then 25 years of experience in higher ed,
exactly.
I think. Mm.
Exactly. And Chip Pausick, also our president and chief operating officer, he ran Hooked on Phonics before this. So we have a lot of people who have very varied educational backgrounds.
It helped with the funding, I suppose, as I think currently you are the best funded, if I can say, startup or company in education, I think.
I very much think of us as a startup still, and probably will for longer than we actually are. But yes, we've raised the most funding of any ed tech startup in the country.
And in the world, I think.
Probably yeah. True. And I think the reason for that is because people are starting to see that it is possible to create incredibly compelling academic experiences throughout higher education. So we're focused on higher ed because it's our belief right now that the master's programs that we create are as good or better than their campus counterparts from these great universities. So when we work with our partners, we're only looking to create partnerships where we believe we, with the university together, can create something that is as good or better and transformatively good compared to everything else online.
So when you decide on working together with one or the other university, tell me, as you basically give them the tools, your expertise in building a technology solution online. But of course, there's also the question around capital. So basically, you invest in this partnership with the university, and sometimes as things in higher education, even if the people want to move forward and also see the need and the benefits, but certainly there are cycles. So it sometimes takes a while. So you also make an investment in the university, in both their potential and with your capital. So how does it actually work? how is your selection process of the partnerships you want to do and to agree with?
So it's a little bit like dating, because we really are only looking for one partner in each vertical. And so because we invest so heavily in each partnership, because at the end of the day, technology is very expensive up front. The marginal cost, the cost per additional user to scale it, is much lower than offline. But the initial costs to get an online program up and running and to make it great are very high. We're investing upwards of $10 million in each partnership. So we have to believe, just as they have to believe, that if we come together to build something, we can make it fantastic. We can make it the absolute best program in that educational vertical. And so we spend a lot of time on both sides really getting to know the people at the schools that we work with and making sure that they get to know us as a company and as a group of people, because that relationship is fundamentally important to really making the partnership work. Because we don't control anything that involves academic integrity or rigor. So the curriculum is entirely set by the faculty at the school. The school has complete control over the admission standards. So we don't choose who gets in. We're really the infrastructure to allow them to scale a great global program. And so because we have to work so closely together, and because we're only choosing one partner per vertical, it's incredibly important that we make the right choice, basically. And so we're constantly in talks with lots of different schools and potential partners. And ultimately, we're really looking to figure out who would we really work the best with.
I had the possibility to talk with one of the professors of your recent partnership with the Rossier School, so the MAT at USC and tutor, and she said, so one thing in higher education at the very beginning, even though they themselves as the core team were pro and also wanted to go forward with it, but thought of sort of still of the solutions available a few years ago, so not really being updated about the recent and most innovative possibilities for universities to put their curricula and master programs, for example, online. On the other hand, amongst not so few colleagues, there were also raised eyebrows if this is the right way to go. Is this still the challenge, or do we go through a transition that also universities now actively come towards tutor and see what's maybe possible?
You know, I think the Rossier School and Dean Gallagher, there's no question, they took a huge leap of faith working with us and being our first partner. And our respect for them is and always will be immense, and it's definitely part of it because of the faith they placed in us. Things have obviously gone very, very well for that program and for the school overall, and I like to think that, you know, we've played a role in that, and we're proud to have played a role in that. And so that definitely was sort of the longest, because you really had to talk about the future and what it could be, as opposed to showing what it has been already and what has already been created. Subsequent partnerships have been much simpler because we're able to point to the success of our existing programs. You know, the MAT program and the MSW program are two of the most highly acclaimed programs in teaching and social work in the world now. And so at this point, I think it's safe to say that if a great university is looking to create an online program and they believe that it has to be great, it has to be as good or better than on campus, then we're on a short list of people they're looking to speak with. So it's definitely now less of us reaching out and more people reaching out to us. But at the end of the day, it's always going to be a discussion between both sides around what is the best fit. Because that fit and that relationship is so critical to its long-term success.
And how does our audience have to imagine when you speak of creating an atmosphere at least as good as on campus, if not better? What does it need as the tools to administer, but also to market for those schools or universities to actually then market their online degree programs? So without going too much in the details of the product, as it's basically individualized for each university, so you cannot say per se tutor does this or that. It's not a standard. As I said, it's individualized. But what is sort of the key points, what is key to make the online experience as good as the real life experience?
There are a couple things that are really critically important. The way that we view the world is that for an academic experience to be really high quality, for it to be as good as an on-campus experience at a great school, you need to start at the very least with students that are equally as smart. You need to have students your classmates, who will challenge you and push you and expand sort of the bounds of your thought. And the only way that happens is if you absolutely maintain the academic quality of the students coming in. So you need to maintain the admission standards. So that's at the very baseline. We make sure, or really the university makes sure, but we fully support them in that only students who would get in on campus can get in online. So you start from the same level of quality for your class discussions. The second part is actually having those class discussions. It's live synchronous sessions where, just as you can see and interact with me, across the Atlantic and actually have a real conversation, our students are using a platform like Skype, but instead of 2 windows, there are 8 small windows where they can see and interact with students all over the world in their class and their professor. They can raise their hand the way they would in a typical classroom environment. So having that synchronous learning environment, that real-time session with students or professors, and the ability to do that regularly, we believe is also critically important. So you're maintaining the same approach academically. The other thing that's really important is ensuring that you build out a real network. So a lot of people ask, if you're only going to school online, how do you build out a network of peers who can then support you after you graduate? That graduate school is so much about making friends and developing relationships that will support you professionally. But 10% of marriages now start online. You can build really significant relationships online if you think about it and try to do it intelligently. And so we've built in to our learning management system a robust social network that connects students, allows them to build out those relationships, and allows them to connect not just through their classes and through the real-time sort of synchronous sessions, but also through the various social groups they can create. Any student can create a group for students from New York City, or they can create a group for librarians in the platform, or people who just love books. And through that group, they can connect with other people with similar shared passions, which is really the essence of how you're connecting with people in graduate school offline as well. It's around shared interests and passions. That's how you develop real relationships. And so by taking that seriously and by really looking to facilitate those real relationships online and offline, I believe you can actually do an even better job of connecting people, not just the people around them, because most graduate schools really pull from just their local area, but connecting them to peers all over the world who they can form real relationships with, but they can also learn an immense amount from in terms of how other cultures operate. I think that's an opportunity that the MAT at USC has that really no other master's in teaching program does, and one that we're really excited about.
Yeah, I think definitely cultural interaction also with people not necessarily only from your own culture. And then, of course, some students, I suppose, if you're in a very remote area, having the online experience is already 1000% better of what you could have offline. As you sort of drew the parallel with the marriages and also following your passions, I asked myself the question whether at one point they are also taking, at least in large urban areas, let's say, take this experience at one point offline and have
Absolutely.
sort of the balance of, yes, meeting my peers online, but when I have the opportunity, also meet them sometimes at least offline and have a conversation.
Absolutely. So that's actually very, very important. Studies have also shown that while you can develop really strong relationships online, those relationships are even stronger if you meet offline, even just one time. And so there are two implications for that for us. One is that the program academically requires an offline component in a school. So we actually work to place all of our students in a local high school or elementary school, whatever they're choosing to study, for them to have a master-teacher experience where they're being guided through sort of lesson plans and how one actually teaches offline, because that is ultimately where they will be teaching. They just don't need to have that classroom experience in South Central Los Angeles. They can be where they are, and that's totally fine, as long as they have a great support system that can help them. What the students do at that point is they record themselves teaching, and then we'll take that back, upload it into the learning management system, and then be able to watch themselves to get feedback from their peers and from their professor, and ultimately to be able to alter the way that they teach and to improve it based on that understanding and being able to see themselves. The other area is exactly what you're saying around students interacting with each other. So the MAT students, once you get to scale, and that's why scale is so important, you actually start to have pockets of students in every major urban area. So there are 40 students in the city of New York who can get together on a monthly basis to interact the way that they would if they were all on campus together. Same with Atlanta, Georgia. Same with San Francisco, California. There are students now in every major urban area that get together and have meetups on a regular basis. And that's something that we absolutely encourage and want to support as much as possible because of how valuable we believe those interactions are short and long term for the students.
Yeah, that's very exciting how relationships built online can then spread in the offline world and even become better. And the other aspect I find very interesting, because I think it's actually more democratic probably when being taped when you teach, or one of the master students then teaches and gets practice and sort of takes this file then online and uploads it into the portal, then actually getting feedback from both their professor and their peer students. So I find this actually, I remember in the classic system when you're being sort of graded only by your professor, by your mentor, then this way you can always see that again and again and really have an objective, more objective way, more democratic way of then actually obtaining your grade. So that's a good...
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
So when you said you're so selective as you only work together with one university in each vertical, tell us a little bit more towards the end what verticals have already been covered. So you partnered with somebody, and at what verticals are you looking, like let's say for the next year in 2012 then?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have 4 partner programs right now. The first is obviously the MAT at USC with the Ross Sears School at the University of Southern California. Our second partnership is with the School of Social Work at the University of Southern California. It's a master's in social work. The third is a master's in nursing at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. And our fourth partnership is actually the first top 20 MBA program online, and it's with UNC Chapel Hill and the Keenan Flagler School at UNC. And so those are our existing 4 partnerships. We are planning to launch new partnerships in 2012. We don't yet have an announcement, but it's safe to say that we have a good idea of who those partners will be, and we're very, very excited for them. 2012 is going to be a big year, not just for Tutor, but I think for online education in general. You're going to start seeing a lot of the trends that we've seen over the past year really develop. You're going to start seeing them really come into their own in 2012. There's actually a great Mashable article written by Michael Stadden of Integral, which came out yesterday, talking about the top trends of 2011. Definitely worth checking out if you get a chance. I obviously love that Tutor is mentioned in it, but in general, I think that 2012 is going to be a very important year for education and educational technology.
And of course, it's worth checking out Tutor itself. So the branding is very easy to follow. So you're basically in all the social networks, or let's say on Twitter, it's always @Tutor, so 2 as a number and then TOR, so @Tutor. Other places where people should go and get information about you, educate themselves more what you do?
Of course. So if anyone has any questions directly for me, I'm always happy to answer them on my Twitter account. It's @JeremyJ. And so that obviously goes for you or anyone else out there. You're more than welcome to reach out there. In addition, I'd say it's worth taking a look at the MAT website to learn more about that program. So I'd look at mat.usc.edu, and I would definitely take a look at it. For any aspiring or current teachers looking to advance their career, it's, in my humble opinion, hands down the best online program in the world, and something that we are incredibly proud of, but more importantly, that our students love and universally recommend. And so that support for us really is what tells us that we're doing a good job. The fact that they love the program and are so universally supportive of it, really for us is the single greatest sort of aspect of what we do. Allowing people all over the world to gain access to incredibly high quality education.
And for all the aspiring teachers or people who think education or a career in education might be something for them, also check out teach.com. So
absolutely.
That's a great website and name, of course, as well. I hope it didn't cost too much.
It was not cheap, but it was totally worth it. I think it's going to help educate a lot of people around what it means to be a teacher and why teachers are so important. And that's something that no matter where people train, we believe the world should know. Ultimately, the more great people that understand how big of an impact they can have as teachers, the better off the world is overall, and the happier we are as people. So it's something we're very proud to support.
Great closing statement, Jeremy, and thank you so much for taking the time and talk with me today.
Kirsten, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, and Happy New Year.